And in the meantime, you can't work legally in this country when you're still waiting for the status of a petitioner. Even now, he's 28, 29 years old, waiting, can't work as a priest. If he was to change his status, become a religious worker, you go to the back of the line, you start over again. And the process could take another 10 years. So that's a second example. We have a couple people that I know in that category. Third example, someone who comes here on a student visa. So they come to study, university, meantime fall in love, marry, have 3 children. When she's no longer a student, then she's here illegally and she's up to be deported. So her 3 children will stay in this country along with her husband while she's supposed to be deported to another country. Now, she would do all things legally if the government would get back in time. There's a lot of the process there. Fourth example, and this is many examples in this fourth category. Many people who come and they're waiting, usually being petitioned by their family. And in the meantime, they go to school, graduate from high school, can go to college, pay higher fees, but go to college, able to work here as well. And they marry and have their family. The thing is, they can't marry civilly. So they live together, and they say, Father David, can you marry us just in the church? Because if they marry civilly, they petition the government as a single person. And when you get married civilly, you are petitioning, your status changes. Now that you're a married person, you go back to the back of the line, and you wait again. So Father, can you marry us just in the church so we can receive the sacraments? We come to Mass every Sunday, we're Catholic, we want to be able to go to communion. Can't do it. Because in the church, we're not allowed to do weddings that are not also valid according to the civil law. That's church law. I can't just marry people that's not a valid civil marriage as well. So they're stuck, they wait until they hear back on their immigration status. These are just some examples. There are thousands of stories, some legal immigrants, some illegal immigrants. These are just some stories. You may know people as well. The point simply being that a revision of our laws or a reformation of our laws might make this process better, quicker, at least to say, just tell me yes or no. Can I stay or not? Don't lead me on and make me wait for 10 or 15 years. Just give me a yes or no answer, please. With that being said, I want to just share with you some of the principles that the U.S. bishops are calling for comprehensive immigration reform. You can find all these on the website, justiceforimmigrants.org, general principles. And as we go through them, I just want you to think in your heart and ask yourself, does this make sense or not? If you were writing and reforming immigration law, what would you do? Would these be some of your guiding principles? The first principle the bishops have is global anti-poverty efforts. The idea is that many people immigrate for economic reasons. There can also be political reasons as well. But many immigrate for economic reasons, and if the economies of other countries are strong, they're less likely to immigrate to the United States looking for work. And the bishops want that. Fewer people immigrating for economic reasons. In the 1930s, we saw a bigger egress of people from the United States rather than coming in due to the Great Depression. More people were leaving because the economy here wasn't strong than were coming in the 1930s. So the bishops are looking for global anti-poverty efforts as a part of immigration law. The second principle is the emphasis on reuniting families. So the case can simply be the example I gave of the mother who will be deported, or the example of somebody who comes on a temporary worker visa, but the family, the wife and the children stay in another country and they can't come quickly. The bishops want families to stay together as much as possible, just like you want your own family to stay together as much as possible. The third principle is a better temporary worker program. And there are a lot of components to this. So this is talking about those who come as temporary workers to this country. So the first component to this is a path to permanent residency, which is achievable and verifiable. So if you're coming as a temporary worker, let there be some way, earned way even, as we'll hear, of being able to stay permanently if that's okay with you and the U.S. government. So have some kind of path to permanent residency here that's possible to do rather than just waiting year after year after year. The second component is family unity, which allows immediate family members to join the worker. And I just spoke about that. Try to have the whole family here together. Even if only one can work, the family needs to be together. The third component, job portability, which allows workers to change employers. The idea of being able to change a different employer even though I do the same kind of work. For example, The lady who comes on the religious worker visa is sponsored by the Diocese of San Bernardino. She does a specific job. If she wanted to work for the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, she can't, even though she would do the same job, because she's only sponsored by this diocese, for example. The problem with this, the diocese generally treats our employees pretty well. The problem is when you get an employer who says, okay, I sponsored you, you're mine. I don't have to pay you just wages. You can't go anywhere else. And so it opens itself to mistreatment on the part of employers, right? Because you're stuck. You can't go somewhere else with your visa. And so they want the possibility to be able to change jobs in the same field with different employers. The fourth component are labor protections which apply to U.S. workers. So as U.S. workers, we cannot be fired without just cause. There's a due process involved. We can't be forced to work overtime and not be paid for it. If we're full-time employees, we need to be offered benefits as well. Those can't be denied. We get certain holidays off. Well, U.S. bishops want those same kind of rights for those who come working temporarily in this country as well, for immigrants who come to work in this country, because they don't all get those kinds of rights. The fifth component of a better worker program is enforcement mechanisms and resources to enforce or to protect workers' rights. Just some way of being able to have due process. If you're fired without cause, you can go somewhere, right, to make sure that your voice and your voice is heard and your rights are vindicated. The sixth component are wages and benefits which do not undercut domestic workers. Interesting idea, right? If I have somebody who's here on a worker visa and I can pay him or her a lot less and not offer benefits, even though I should, versus somebody that I need to pay a just wage and offer benefits, as an employer, I'm tempted to hire the one that's going to cost me less money, right? And a lot of times, some of the problem with illegal immigration comes from the employers as well, employers who also participate in this, just thinking of ways to cut costs. So the thinking of the bishops is that if the salaries and benefits are the same, then I'm not enticed more to choose the temporary immigrant worker. I can choose the American U.S. domestic worker as well, because the cost to me as an employer is going to be about the same. So it protects U.S. jobs, is what that does. The seventh component is mobility between the United States and the person's homeland. So people have a right, for example, on a religious worker visa, to travel back to their country of origin and visit as long as your stay is not more than 30 days. The problem is, even though this is United States law, there's a lot of mistreatment both in other countries at the airport and even here in our countries at some of the airports by immigration officials who may not know the law as well as they should. The U.S.